you
or
for noticing.
we need to be careful. So this is Crockett 36, and I'm here delighted to be again interviewing some top level Access and Allies players. This is JDOW, and he is an excellent player and highly recommended by Gamerman01. I will tell you that Gamerman has said that he thinks you are the best in the world. So
It's high praise.
that is
Thank
high
you.
praise. I don't think you get higher praise. JDOW, if you would tell us a little bit about yourself, that would be great.
Yeah. Hello, everyone. My name is Tobias, or call me Toby. I live in Germany, as you can probably realize by my thick accent. Yeah, I'm in my 40s. I'm a scientist by training. I work in e-learning and do medical education for healthcare professionals, both in nursing and medical. And yeah, I love playing X and Allies. I got in touch with the game very early, like during school, and then I had a break. Maybe we can elaborate on this later. But yeah,
Sure.
so I'm here. I'm glad. Thanks for having me, and very nice to be here.
Excellent, excellent. So when did you first stumble on that wonderful box that is just so beautiful, and we all were drawn to immediately?
It was actually the box. I think it's many years ago. I think it was during school. On Sundays we had some. It was kind of a tabletop board games nerd club. So we played every Sunday. The games we played most often was World in Flames. Have you ever heard
Okay,
about this game?
I
Are you
have not.
familiar? So it's this is take the complexity of accident allies, multiply it by 10, and then we get close to what World in Flames is. It's a World War II simulation, so it's very similar in terms of who the powers are. It's very comparable to Global 40 X and Allies, but it's just 10 times more complex. It's a hexagon based, and it was a monster. And frankly, I think there was only one player who really understood all the rules. He was mostly winning. So he played UK, which was the most complicated power in this game. I usually played Germans, which was more straightforward. Okay, go east, kill the Russians. So it was very similar to X and Allies. But we played this game. We played Blood Bowl. We played role-playing tabletop role-playing games, and there was this X and Allies box. I don't even know, what version. This is comparable from 20, 30 years back. So it was the classic X and Allies box. And we played the game frequently. And I have to admit, I don't remember much of this. So, and
Sure,
then, I left school and then it faded away. X and Allies
sure.
was not there anymore. But then in some 2011, 2012-ish, then some colleagues out of sudden they brought this box back, but actually we played it in a live game. We just met on Sundays again, not every Sunday, but maybe 3, 4 times a year. And he came up, hey, I have this X and Allies game. Like, oh, I know this game. You know what? I'm very competitive. When there's board games, I want to win. It's about winning, and there, I have an edge. I know this game, but this was not the traditional. I don't know, the small. This was G40 actually,
Oh,
and we played G40 then. Board game, and I think it was hilarious. When I now recall how we played this game, the strategies were so ridiculous. We messed up with the rules. For
sure.
instance, I recall then after the game realized, oh damn, we didn't put the Chinese fighter on the board. So the Chinese had to play without the fighter. We were missing facilities. I just recall some strategies. I know this is I have this vivid memory on this game, like I went to California with Japan in turn 2, actually, and I tried to take California, and I got diced heavily, and I just moved back, and it was ridiculous. But I still won, and so we agreed at this point, let's play another game. But then again, I was in competition mode, and I was thinking, okay, this game is so complex. There's so many options. I don't want to figure it out all by myself, so I was checking out on the internet, and so I then stumbled across the X and Allies forums.
Yes.
Then I found the forums. I learned, it's not very user-friendly to get into this
No.
scene. You know,
Right.
especially you need to understand, well, this client, I need the forum account, I need to download the client, I need to connect it, and so how to post all
Sure.
these games. But you know, I licked blood, and so I decided to go this. You know, I learned all the steps necessary, and yeah, then it was actually Gamer Man. You know,
Yeah.
it's no coincidence he was recommending me now as an interview partner for you, because he was my first touch point in the forum.
That's right.
Back then, he was very active. He was omnipresent in the forum. He was to me back then, he was the king. So he won everything. He was league champion. And he was very kind, because I just started what I'm doing. I want to learn the game. So, and I'm very you know, I'm attracted to communities. I like for posting in forums.
Sure.
And then I think I PM'd him, you know, I learned how you do this. And I was just asking him with regard to strategies. And he
Yeah.
was very kind, and he answered very politely and patiently. And so I can say he took me under his wing. And
Yeah.
most of my DNA and X and Allies, so this X and Allies brain, that you know, most of this I learned from him.
Okay.
Especially I mean, you know him by this interview, but he's not just a G40 player that's like I am. So he has an X and Allies brain. And
Yes.
so I like, when I'm talking about X and Allies, I like a lot on those chess comparisons, because I think there's lots of comparisons, although there's no luck factor in chess. But you know, there's a book called My System from Nimzowitsch. It's a chess book. By the way, I'm a recreational player. I have some knowledge, but I'm not a great chess player.
Okay.
I'm an ambitious hobby player. But this book teaches you the basic principles of chess. And that's what Gamerman does. So he
Yes.
knows the basic principles of the game, and he can apply them to any. Is it A40 and he has played so many versions, which I
Sure.
didn't. Other players, they learn the openings. And so
Right.
okay, this is my opening, and
Yeah.
I do this all the time. But you know, he was very inspiring to me. And so I think maybe I took the answer a bit too far from how I got into it. So I did just not
No,
answer how I got,
that's great.
what my first touch point was, but how I then got into the forum. And that was then, you know, he took me under his wing. We have lots of discussion, and I played games, and that's how it started then in, I think, 2013 or 14, when I started playing regularly.
Yeah. Honestly, you know, women obviously talk, and they can talk about anything, and it's very natural. And I think of men, and men have to have a reason for talking, and I think your relationship with Gamerman makes the actual board game better, and it makes it more satisfying for you. And that's certainly the case with my playing Axis knowledge with other people. So yeah, well, tell us about your favorites. So you said you're a G40 guy, only G40, and what's your favorite side? What's your favorite nation? What's your favorite piece?
Oh, good question. So yeah, you know, I joined the community playing G40, and I did so ever since. I have to admit, you know, when I see these other versions, the smaller maps, I don't find them attractive. So it becomes I can't deal with those smaller maps. That's one thing. And so yeah, it was G40 since then. When it comes to the sides, I truly believe I'm balanced. So I love playing both sides,
Yes.
and I'm also keen on playing allies. I can tell you that in a life and death match, so if this is like, okay, the devil comes, the gun at you point the gun,
Yep.
play the game, I would choose Axis.
Okay.
For whatever reason, it's easier to play. It's somehow it's easier, and the whole community, in my opinion, has not reached the point to find the real balance point, because people still notoriously underbid the allies and give
Yes.
the Axis away too cheaply. But
Very
but
good.
in terms of sides, I love playing allies too. And I have to say, playing allies is more stressful to me. So there were so many games with allies. uncertain. Okay, what does he do? They're so powerful. It feels like my opponent needs to make a mistake. Otherwise, I don't know how to win. I try
Sure.
everything. I make it complicated for him. My strategy is to give him all the opportunities to make those mistakes, but he
Yes.
has to do them. When
Yep.
I play Axis, it feels like just it's enough when I don't do any mistakes. And
Right.
then I just run over and I just crush my opponents. However, I still think I haven't faced the, what allies are capable of. But, back the days, the community, most of the players I played, they just haven't figured out this yet.
Right.
So, but in terms of sides, I like playing either side. I'm a totally agnostic here. So it's all a question of the bid. So,
Okay.
if somebody, and, I played Andrew AA Gamer at some point, and he was a phenomenon. He was not, he was so interesting to me. He joined. I think he's a veteran. He's
Yes.
certainly a veteran. But then he I guess rejoined the community. I didn't know him before,
Right.
and he played OOB again. So the vanilla version, and he gave people like 60 bits and
Yes.
plus. While back then, the highest bid I ever gave back then was some 41,
Yes.
which was one game, one of the final I lost against Zukov, and I lost the game. And I wouldn't say because of the bid. So I still think he underbid. I still think I could have afforded a bit more of the bid. In this game, I got heavily diced early with Japan, which I never recovered from.
Sure.
Plus, Zukov is one of the greatest players. So
Yeah.
if he smells like a shark, if he smells blood, he's very difficult to shake off.
Okay.
And but he gave 60, then take allies. And back then, I have to say it was an easy win for me, especially because he was, he played so many more games since then. Back then, he was also new, or not new, but he was new in this community.
Yeah.
And he told me the way how I used the bid caught him off guard. So
Oh.
I played a lot against China. So there's one thing. So I just built. I mean, this is now more established, but I bid Infant Yunnan and fighters with Russia, and then I just
Yes.
blocked Yunnan in the first turn. And
What?
then I added some artillery to the Siberians, and then China totally collapsed for the Japan. But back to your question. So I like playing either side.
Sure.
Back, regard to the powers.
Just a little timeout. For those watching at home, from what Toby is saying here, he actually played first edition Global 1940. From my understanding, 2009 was the first edition. Was second edition 2013? Somewhere in there.
Second edition, most likely, yeah, but not sure what the exact difference is, I have to say.
Okay, so there's for instance, there is in first edition there's an air base in Malta and Gibraltar. So there are little things that are a little different. So actually, you'd have played sort of two different versions. Were you the first one to come up with the Russian fighter bid and the Yunnan stack? Because that's
I haven't
everywhere
seen
now.
it before, by the way, the version I think I played then second edition, because the Gibraltar and Malta A bases I
Okay.
never knew there were any, so
Okay.
I think it was second
Okay.
edition.
Sure.
And I think I can elaborate on this when I'm talking about my approach later. I'm
Yes.
watched many people. I'm not sure if I haven't seen this before,
Ah, okay.
but but I can't
Okay.
tell. So usually I make no secret of the fact that I love stealing strategies from others. I just
Sure.
observe games, and I think
Hey,
half of my experience. I got half of my experience by playing, and the other half by just watching others people play. And I love following games of others, and get inspiration by that.
yeah.
And
I've done some reviews. I did a review of the championship game last year. I did a review of I've done two reviews of Andrew A. Gamer's games. I've done two reviews of Arthur Barmer Harris's games. And I've got some others started. I'm trying to figure out how to make it quicker, because I've been doing turn by turn. But you're right. I've actually improved by studying other people, and I think if you don't do it myself, you are well. you know, when I went to college, the first thing they talk about is talk about that intellectual pursuits are a conversation with people in the past. And that's all you do when you study games is you're having a conversation and you're learning from people. I think it's humble. I think it's wise. I think you let other people pay your stupid tax. So, you know, I love your methodology. Let's get to that just a little later and go back to your favorite piece and your favorite nation.
My favorite nation, I have to say, I don't think I have a favorite nation. So
Okay.
I love them all, you know.
Yes.
Maybe
Okay.
some are more interesting, more boring, but you know, and I have to admit, you know, the fun depends on how your games go. You know, sometimes you're just crushing it with Germany, and someone plays a Japan kill KFJ approach, and Japan is just suffering all game, and you're just hanging around. Okay, let Japan survive while Germans are just crushing. And oh, then Germans are great. Other games they throw everything in the other theater, and all of a sudden, then Japan is just thriving. And no, I don't have a
Okay.
favorite nation.
Okay. How
I
about
like them
peace?
all. About the units, let me think. What is the favorite unit? Um, so one infantry,
Yeah.
because it's the most. I mean, I'm not sure if this is maybe a standard answer, but infantry is just so important in this
Yes.
game.
Yeah.
So you can't. It's. I think it's infantry and fighters. You know,
Yes.
fighters. They are so nimble
Yeah.
and so strong. And
Sure.
the fighters is certainly the best value for money in terms of air.
Yep.
Even at when bombers were at 12, although it's then close, but still fighters have so many merits. So I guess it's infantry and fighters, but
Excellent. Excellent.
not the strong preference. So again, somehow I like them all, and I try to utilize them all, maybe except for buying cruisers or battleships, which
Sure.
rarely makes sense. But no, I'm you know I'm very I would just say I don't know I like them all basically.
Okay. Okay. Now, where, how do you usually play? Are you, and how often? So are you a tabletopper at all, or is it mostly, or tournaments, mostly online? I know I think you're a big accessnowledge.org. Um, so where do you play and how often?
You know, fortunately, so I'm a bit of a sabbatical since 2 years. At some point, I played a lot, and the last 2 years I haven't been that active in playing myself due to time constraints. You know, I can't tell. You know, I'm also playing pool billiard ambitiously, so like US pool. And maybe Gavin told about it. I gave him some advice on his snooker table at home. And so I'm playing ambitious pool player, and at some point I can't put the hours in with X and allies because I'm OCD style obsessed. When I play, I
Okay.
focus, and it takes just too much time. I need for the other hobbies. So, but to answer your question, I play X and allies exclusively online, and I have to admit when I see people doing those reviews and they great videos, and the board games, and they show the moves, I get crazy when I see this. So it's just too cumbersome, it's too much work, it's not pragmatic enough with rolling dice manually. So I think that's, by the way, quite tough. Even if people now would invite me to an afternoon with board games, I would probably recommend, guys, let's just get notebooks and we play on the forum. Let's play more. Let's put it on a screen. It's so nice. Let's do all the dice rolling through the email server. So no, I'm playing and online exclusively.
Okay.
And recently I play less. And before I was constantly having some 2 or 3 games, not more, because if the game get close, the complicated turns can take you up to 3 hours if it's very complex. Apparently, the US, UK, China turns are the most complicated in the game.
Sure.
But as soon as when later in the game, much crossover takes place, then the can opening becomes so weird on both
Yes.
theaters. So then Italy is is the most painful nation, because when playing Italy, you play Germany as well.
Yes.
But then, you know, early in the game, you can just skip Anzac because they have no influence anyway. But if then later there are plenty of fighters in the European board, you even have to guesswork what those fighters might do before you then plan out your German turn. So it becomes more complicated, and I never managed to play more than 2-3 games, probably preferable 2. So when I see other guys, you know, especially Access Dominion, I think he's the guy who plays most of the game, who plays most games in parallel. I can't, I couldn't cope with that.
Well, I think it's a good time to get into your methodology. So when you are and so I just want everyone to know who didn't watch the Gamerman video that you're, I think, like highly competitive pool player, like championship or competition.
In my federal state, I became local champion. So I'm still, you know, I'm still an amateur. So I'm just a very ambitious amateur. I play in the second highest possible league in Germany. But there's when you go to the top competition, and pool billiard is you know, it's incredibly rising in terms of prize money and how many professionals there are. I mean, also many. I'm, you know, familiar with the US professionals. There's a US pool scene, but you know, Asians, there's a lot of Asian competition. So I'm a highly competitive, but still an amateur player who just loves this game.
Okay, so, and I point that out just to say that obviously you've got methodology, you've got discipline, you've got ambition, and that's why one of the reasons why I would think we should listen to you and how you approach the game, because you've already demonstrated an ability to be proficient at something. So yeah, would you get into your how do you become good at Axis Nellis? And I have a few questions from the forum, from a post that may or may not help out. So, but go ahead with the methodology.
I think I already gave a sneak peek on my first method is, you know, learning from others. You know, why should I figure out things that others did before? You know, as you know, it's a time-consuming game, and if you move and you want to learn, you can't learn all the easy step by yourself if others provided you with them. So I looked at the top competition, how they do their openings. To give you one example, I don't like J1 DOW with Japan.
Yep.
The fun thing is, I hate it when I'm Axis, and I'm also hating it when I'm allies. So whatever side I play, I hate J1 DOW. But one game I felt I was forced to do it. And by the way, then the opponent did this Yunnan bid against me. And my strategy was to declare war with G1 and Japan. So I wanted to stretch the Russians from the beginning. So if they have their fighters in China, they can't find the Germans who are already approaching Russia from turn 1. So typical squeeze strategy. So choose your opponent on what board to fight with. And then I did it. And then, okay, I need to do DOW1. And then, well, who am I now to start figuring out how to do this? I looked at the forum. So who are the 2 best players doing this? And it was Zukov and Adam. And I just looked at their J1 DOWs and made a synthesis and copied the strategy. You know, first look at what others do and find what the best strategies are. And then, you know, I think it's too much to explain it all. So there's so much conventional wisdom I took from Gamerman on, you know, how you approach the game. So I had these concepts in mind, and basically I apparently do have a couple of objectives. So I think when I plan a turn, I ask myself, so what are my objectives? When the game starts, apparently, then that's the only, and even then, because it depends on the bid, but the G1 is basically the only turn that one could consider as deterministic, because it's always the same. It's actually not, because the bid can also heavily influence my turn, because, you know, people tend to build ships in 91, 106. That entirely changes the strategy. A fighter in Scotland, how do you attack? So my approach is, to play safe with G1. Usually I hate attacking both 110 and 111.
Okay.
Too risky for me,
Okay.
especially because I don't do a naval build. So you go 110, you can brush it safely usually. People don't scramble. Then 111 is shaky. People do scramble. And then you have the attacker's advantage, you can always retreat. But if you don't do a naval build, the retreat doesn't help you much because you
That's
have no
right.
follow-up to chase the ships up. And I hate naval builds with Germany. So usually I skip either 109 and 110. I have some variation. My openers, I figured them out. So it's either you take 106 and 110 out, you let 111 go. Or I have another opener, I take 111, 109 out.
Oh,
This is
I like
this is good.
109. I like
This is a
109.
good, yeah. I mean,
Wait,
the
did
beauty
you
with
say 106 and 109?
and 111. So those three. I take 106 is a given. You can never let 106 go. 106 needs to die at always.
Are
So
you
I
trying to
take
kill the destroyers?
I kill all the destroyers. That's the
Very
strategy.
good. I thought I was the first one to think of that. Okay.
No. That was a very common strategy. One of my two openers I love, and for apparent reasons. So your subs, the surviving subs survive longer. There's no destroyer to
Right.
chase them.
Yeah.
Apparently, there's a price you have to let 110 go.
Yes.
And 110 with the problem, they can go to the Met immediately with some capital ships. So that's the trade-off you have to accept. But yeah, so these are my two strategies. But basically, okay, G1 is deterministic. I make these two naval openers and in the Atlantic, and then my plan with Germany is I will take and hold Ukraine by turn 4. End of story. And actually, I never deviated from this. And that's another very nice lesson I learned from Gamerman. So, does the German army go north or south? I don't know why people go north. It makes no sense for me. So south is just better. You go to Ukraine by turn 4, and then people who argue, but I want to secure Novgorod, Leningrad. That's the term Gamerman used. Chess again. You always get Leningrad en passant. The Russians can't defend it anyway. If you go Ukraine, they need to put their forces there. Otherwise, they die anyway. So you always get Leningrad for free. You go Ukraine, and this way you're just faster to the money where the German army belongs. So my first plan is Germany, okay. Ukraine, G4, end of story. And because there's alternative strategies. You can go naval, you delay this, you have other merits if you do so. You can send your Scandinavian units east, which otherwise would have to protect Norway. But end of story. Other board, China, there's a very simple approach. Put a wedge between India and China. Prevent them from merging. So I take Yunnan, and then I put enough air force on Szechuan to force the Chinese to retreat to Shenzhen. Sorry, I'm not how to pronounce it. Shenzi.
Yeah.
And if they don't, I airstrike them. So that's the strategy. So you either retreat or I'm airstriking you. And I'm willing to airstrike as long as I get a 1-round kill.
Okay.
It's more than it's too expensive for the Chinese, but for the Japs. But that's a simple approach. Get this wedge between them.
Okay.
So that's G1, that's J1, and this plan thing accompanies me through all the terms. So what do I want later? Okay, now I'm thinking. Okay, I need to get the money islands. How do I get this? How do I lose objective? Get the money. Objective 2, lose as little transfers as possible. And then I get greedy, but how the Chinese in check? How do I I want the Chinese. I don't want them to go there. I want the Indians to sit idle in India and not going to Burma. And I'm setting all these objectives and I'm trying to achieve them until I can't anymore. At some point, it's an overstretch and then I need to make compromises. But that's one thing I realized from when other players play, that I think people are also not hungry enough with regard to setting more objectives. No, it's not enough to just do this and this. What can I do in addition to what I can achieve safely? And so I try to set me as many objectives as possible. and then I see how many of them I can accomplish, and sometimes I'm surprised myself what's possible. And at a certain point, if the stretch, I'm a conservative player, so I'm not taking too many risks. So if I conclude at some point, okay, that's enough, I can't have them all. And then I decide, okay, which one is the least important to me? And then I let this one go, basically. And that's how I approach my turn. And then when Gamerman said he's playing the opponent, he's playing not the game, basically.
Yes. Okay.
And I think that's what he said in the interview when you had him, and I think I'm doing a mixture of this. To some degree, I certainly play my opponent, especially on their openers. If I know my opponent is a J1 DOW player, I may consider, and I hate, as you know, I hate I want to prevent this because I just hate it. Then I place a mech at Burma, which has a chance to hit French Indochina, which is very annoying for a J1 Japan to get French Indochina taken back from UK, and they can't prevent it. So that's one thing. So I have some anti-DOW one bit, but basically, so I'm playing my opponent in this regard. Other than that, I think I'm got inspired by three players. One is when I'm playing allies, I'm thinking, what kind of bait would Gamerman offer the opponent? Because he's bolder than me in this regard. So how bold can I get to offer them something which apparently should backfire when they take it? I'm looking for, one player who inspires me is Axis Dominion, who's a very, very creative player. So I'm thinking, okay, what's the most creative thing Axis Dominion would do now? Because he's very creative. And there's the player ME 1945. Also a very good player. And he's certainly the most reckless player. So I'm thinking, okay, what's the most reckless thing my opponent would do? And this is how I try to gauge on what risk level I should I should play. And basically I'm rather on the safe side here. And yeah, so to wrap the answer to this question up, so I'm setting myself objectives, and objectives are apparently the big objectives are getting Moscow, getting India, and then dominate the world. By the way, I'm more a player who plays towards domination. I never rush to VC victories, or I don't like.
Very good. Very good.
I think I can come to this point later because that's a very great development, but I can tell you more about this when we come to a balanced mode.
Yes.
First, to not overload this question, I'm setting up my plans, my objectives, trying to get in as many as possible until I can't get any more in, and then I set this, and then I execute the turn.
Okay. And for the Americans, what would be your objectives for the Americans?
Apparently, Europe is getting a foothold on European soil.
Okay.
Preferably, apparently through 110. It's the biggest stretch for Russia. That was also a lesson Gamerman taught me early. Germany needs two fronts.
Yes.
And those fronts should be as separate as it can be. People tend to put everything to the Middle East. Get everything from there, then get a second, not just one power, but a combined power from the Middle East, which is somewhat powerful. But if there's no pressure from West, Germans can always send everything east. Everything is combined. But the stretch is what both forces the Germans to wear off, and it gives the most room for blunder and errors, because this stretch becomes very hard to manage. There's so many variables to cover them. You always need to guard West Germany, East Germany, Norway, France. So basically, my objective is basically to get a foothold in. So two objectives. So maybe US. The objective is the foothold, the classical French beachhead. So history taught us well. So what the real history taught us is, in my opinion, the best strategy in exercises.
Yeah.
And with UK, to anticipate this question, it's killing Italy as cheaply as possible. So Italy needs to be taken out sooner or later, and everyone can kill Italy. It's not they can't they can't keep up with an arms race. But the question is not just killing Italy, but killing them cheaply or
Yes.
efficiently and not trade. Valuable. So there's a ranking in value of IPCs early, especially. So the Luftwaffe is holy. This is the most careful and powerful force you need to protect. You only have 12 at the beginning. Japan has 21, so they can afford losing more planes. So there's German IPC, which are very precious.
Yes.
And then there's the UK IPC, which is less precious than the Germans. So early in the game, UK can trade maybe 3-4-2 in terms of fighters. But then there's Italy, which is even downward which is down the food chain. And certainly UK does not want to treat equally with Italy. They want to crush them. And for this very reason, I'm not too keen on attacking 97 anymore early, because often you do take Italy out, but it costs UK as well.
Right.
And I think against most players, you get better trades later, because at some point your forces will become so overwhelming so that you can crush Italy cheaply. That's one thing where I think I deviated from what Gamerman back then, he was always keen on attacking 97, and he still is. And I still think it's a valid strategy. It's not bad, but in most situations, I call it the Gibraltar Bastion.
Yes.
And then you move to 92 we let 97 go, move to 92. And apparently this way, you may also have better chances to have a fleet strong enough to stay in 110, because if you lose your 98 carrier, it's gone, though it takes more time to rebuild the fleet. So
sure.
But with US, it's the foothold in Normandy. In the Pacific, it's more difficult. So it depends way more on what Japan does, apparently. But the simplest and most straightforward goal is to secure Carolines.
Okay. All right. And Russia?
Russia's goal is I have very clear goal with Russia. So, Russia can never stop the German advance if played properly. It's impossible, but you not entirely stop. My goal with Russia is to delay the advance for 1 or 2 turns.
Okay.
Either by, at some point, depending on how they play, getting enough attack power to out of sudden death zone territory they want to approach to, so they can't move up because they death zone it. Or if I play this defensively, I'm just blocking them enough. So if it's like, if they go north, which many players still do, so I'm blocking Bryansk, then you need to pay for the preventing can opening in Smolensk. But so this way, either passively or aggressively sometimes, depending on how Germans play. So if I can, so the strategy with Russia is delay the advance for 1, maybe 2 turns, or as long as you can. Then, and the second part is, it's a sad story. It's survive.
Sure.
I hate losing my capitals, although I think a few games I lost because of that. That's something that Axis Dominion told me. If you find the right terms to concede India or even Russia, if you do this on the right terms, it can even be beneficial for you. You can still win. So it's not the end of the world. And I think I lost some games because I was too keen on holding these capitals, so that when all the fighters are sitting in Moscow and they can't fight elsewhere. So how do I support my Normandy landing if fighters sitting in Moscow? How do I fight the Japanese powers? So that's why I think at this point I could have played more effectively by maybe letting Russia go, but hit with all my planes elsewhere. So it's a two-edged sword to put everything into Russia to defend them, but still, it's a victory city. It's a necessity for the Axis to take it if they want to win. So in short, delay the advance a few turns if you can, and then survive. There's not much more you can do. Then trade efficiently, and it's all about precision. How efficiently do you trade? and how many units do you have for every single unit? How do you optimize everything? So
Okay,
basically,
can you draw on? You mentioned in guys, if I'm going to learn how to share the screen, but I have in back of this your comments on we need allied playbook, and you had mentioned that thing. So can you tease that out a little bit more about trading and valuable trades? Now, obviously, the allies are earning more money, so their dollars go further, and the axis, at least at the beginning, first even up to turn 4, they're making significantly less money, so their dollar doesn't stretch as far. So, and you're also talking about, I think you're talking about blocking the can openers, which I would guess involves probably 3 Russian infantry, so the Italian tanks can't get through. So tell me about trading, and when do you think the trade is worth it?
I mean, trading or attrition battles is, I think there are three types of battles in X and Allies. There is like advancing battles. You go there to take a territory and to hold it and to move on. So that's
Right.
when I say, I want a Ukraine G4, I'm advancing. There is attrition battles, which mean that you can't take and hold the territory. You just want to kill units or attrition, what the term means.
Yeah.
And there's another battle which I call destruction battle. Sometimes you just want to destroy something, not because the territory is strategically relevant, but there's an opportunity to kill IPCs of your opponent.
Yes.
And with attrition battles, it's always attrition battles are more tricky than they look. You need to decide which battles do I choose and how many infantry do I take. So when do I just decide to take a single infantry and I accept if my opponent hits in defense, I'm not taking the territory. And when do I want to take the territory? Or when do I even want to underuse units? This applies for Japan. So if there's 2 Chinese, you just attack with a single infantry and take an overwhelming amount of air force in there. And there's still a 45% chance that the opponent will whiff entirely, and an 11% chance you lose a plane. And
Sure.
I can't now map out when to do what. It's very situation dependent.
Sure.
But doing attrition battles the right way is crucial. And by the way, I can, good. I love that you suggested this allied playbook. So back to your initial question, what's my favorite unit? It's infantry. So one mistake people do is underbuying infantry. So they run out of infantry, and at some point they need more expensive units for attrition battles. So you make sure you always have the cannon fodder to sacrifice. And there was a second thought which now slipped.
Sure, sure.
By the way,
Yes.
one last thing. Another thing what people, in my opinion, should reconsider is people are too scared of anti-air. So if there's a camp opener, let's say there's 3 infantry and 1 anti-air.
Yes.
Then they tend to attack with some 5 infantry and 2 artillery without air support. I'm just trudging this with those 7 units against those 4, because I don't want to risk my precious air. And the result is they win the battle. Maybe they lose some 2 units only, and then you have 5 survivors. But those are dead meat. They're gonna get killed in reverse by your opponent.
Sure.
And again, depending on how much air force they have. If Russia has built many planes, it's a bad move to do this. Risk your own planes, but trade efficiently. Just take 3 ground units, kill this blocker, risk the 45% chance of losing at least 1 plane, or average is 50%, but you sometimes lose none, but sometimes you lose 2.
Yeah.
And so it's a good point. Brings with regard to the attrition battles. You need to keep into consideration the potential of your opponent to do good attrition battles in return. So these 2 examples. So Russia has no planes because they all may be fighting in China for whatever reason. and you do this attack with 5 infantry and 2 artillery against 3 inf and an anti-air. Be my guest. What should Russia do? Because they can't efficiently take it back. They either they need to hit and run and hoping not to score too often so that they don't have to take it. But if they want to re-attack you, they can't because of the lack of air. So in this scenario, it's okay. But if Russia has maybe 3 or 4 planes it can efficiently trade, then don't, and then just use your air and risk it. Is that or same with this in Asia when UK offers like 2 infantry and an artillery and an anti-air. So I tend to not be scared of anti-air.
Okay.
Take the shots, and usually the outcome is that I spare more of my ground units. So I never run out of ground units, and the overall outcome is my army is stronger because I keep my cannon fodder and you need, by the way, you need these ground units to take territories in order to not getting attacked. So I'm more conservative on that. And although it's a bit it contradicts that I said the German Luftwaffe is the most precious item it is,
Sure.
I'm still risking to lose it. And because I concur with one thing also Gamerman told me, so I like his quote. So the Russia front is the only front that matters. And this is particularly true for the first 5 to 8 turns.
Wow.
Until then, the Germans must advance. So maybe I can extend my plan. It's Ukraine G4 and it's G6 by the latest G7 so that Germany gets the money. Germany, I love playing Germany like inflating a balloon.
Yes.
So you need to inhale very heavily and blow hard at the beginning to get this to grow this thing. And if you don't blow hard enough, you will never expand that quickly. And I blow as hard as I can. I go to the middle, to the money, no matter what, or I give up. But I never failed. And then I have decisions to make. Do I siege Russia? Do I go Middle East? Then it's okay. But then I have what I need, which is 75 plus income. Otherwise, you can't afford to fight Normandy, which they start at some point and still advancing in Russia.
Very good, very good. You had mentioned also pose as many threats as possible.
Yeah.
So I'm assuming that's more of the Allies because the axis is an arrow aimed straight at the heart of Moscow. The Japanese are aimed straight at the heart of Calcutta. So tell me about posing as many threats as possible.
Yeah. So there's one good example of a typical mistake I also observed, that people they overdo protection. So they have a fleet in 110. And the fleet is invincible. So maybe the German Luftwaffe has 0% odds on them. It doesn't matter 0, 20, 30, 40. Even at 70%, you can't airstrike a fleet with your entire Luftwaffe. So people play off. The main reason why people don't succeed with allies is that they don't split up their forces enough. So if you have an invincible fleet in 110, it's a waste of your armor, the defense you have.
Yes.
I don't need 200% defense. I need a coin flip for the Germans. And so why do you keep all ships there? Move the rest to 91 or 92 and create additional threats on Rome, on North Italy, even on Greece. You know that at some point they need forces to retake in case of doubt. And Greece can be, although I mentioned Normandy is the preferred beachhead, Greece can become a strong beachhead as well for the Allies. So, for instance, split your fleet to the maximum extent, and then what would Gamerman do? So what baits can I offer? No problem, 70, 80%, be my guest, especially if there's retaliation, or especially if you have no cannon fodder as excess in terms of subs or so. If it's just Luftwaffe, 70%, have fun. Take it. I'm happy. Trade your planes. Then you have no power. You need them everywhere. So that's why, spread your forces, and that's particularly relevant for playing in Europe. So never is in most cases, and that's when you see me also playing Gamerman. The map looks the better the player, the better the allied player is, the more crowded the map looks like. And not because we are no magicians, we have the same amount of units. Apparently, if you play better later in the game, you will have more units because you were more successful in acquiring IPCs. But even in the early game, the map looks just crowded because it's everything there. There are boats. There's one boat here, one boat there. And if there's an airbase in Gibraltar, you can easily have a single boat here, single boat there. It's always too expensive for the Axis to attack these single boats. But it's this analogy of the giant with all the needle, the bee stings.
Yes.
Axis is a giant, and there's no people tried it to force it down. I do KJF, no KF, kill Japan, KJF, everything on Japan, and then I overcome them, and they can't deal with the pressure. It's not possible to kill Axis by force early in the game.
Right.
They're always too strong. You can't just try it out. No, it works. Then people think they can, but then Japan was misplayed. If Japan is played properly, you can't overcome it by force. You must wear them off,
Right.
and do not get tricked by games in which it may have worked. It's only worked because the opponent reacted poorly to this. So you must apply 1,000 needle sticks all the time until the giant can't cope with it anymore. Yeah, so the advice is how to create threats, spread your forces, and look at Gamerman is a great example. Look when he plays allies, and the map just looks more crowded. Transport here, transport there, ship here, ship there, trying to put those everything, and it creates more threats, and it gives more room and margin for error for your opponent.
Excellent. Excellent. You said avoid blockers, how to avoid blockers. And I'm also assuming that is the Pacific you're thinking of here.
I mean, I think I said avoid blockers when possible. Apparently, there are situations in which blockers are definitely essential. I think the main lesson I wanted to teach people with this provocative statement is blockers are expensive. If you want to hold a position and you just put them there, sometimes people, I realized I sometimes I saw a player put a blocker which wasn't even necessary.
Yes. Sure.
Japan had some 70% on the fleet at Hawaii, but there was no way they could do this attack because there was retaliation coming anyway. And then they put in a blocker which was entirely unnecessary. People underestimate that blockers are expensive. If you use 2 blockers, it's 16 IPCs every turn, and you can't just afford it. And in many cases, if you just place your fleet more thoughtful, you can just you often don't need them, and you'd rather protect your fleet better, put some planes there, understand that 70% odds for the Axis is in most cases not an attractive offer. You don't need to offer it 70, it's fine to go for 70%, and people just randomly think, oh, he's stronger than me, so I need to block. So be very mindful about your blockers and only use them when the position gives you a real advantage that's important. So trust me, I do use blockers. I do use it, but I try to avoid it. And I think the mistake people make is not even trying. And if you tried everything and then conclude, but I need it because it's required to go to this position, then be my guest. But only if you really did everything you can to avoid it.
Very good. Very good. I'm going to bring up, so you have spoken, and I don't know if the audience is getting this at home, but you are speaking the language of a man who knows his way around a battle calculator. And if you're a table topper or you're a tournament player, the utility of learning your way around a battle calculator, and hopefully at some point in time you learn it internally that you can spot things, you can take shortcuts because you can see it, counting up hit points, counting up pips in your head with smaller battles, but you can get used to it. But if you've never used a battle calculator, you want to comment on that? That it's rather important. It's an important lesson to learn, especially if you want to be a really good player.
I think, yeah, the calculator is indispensable. So you can't run battles without it, and it's apparently, you know, at some point you know some, okay, what's the odds inf art versus inf on an island battle, you know, okay, this is 90, I think 89%, so you know these odds. But I think using the battle calculator is easy, and I think there's not much to learn. But there's one thing which people should learn and many don't. This is another differentiator between the good players and the great players, is a battle takes multiple rounds, and just the out. So sometimes using the battle calculator too mindlessly
Yes.
Is dangerous for players to only look at, yeah, but the TOV is -8. Yeah, but if the odds are 95%, so first people look at the outcome and not what the most likely outcome is. So what's a good example here? But if a battle is at 90% and the average TOV is maybe -5 for you,
Okay.
it could still be a battle it's worth taking, because yes, the -5 come from the disastrous 10%. So if you lose those 10%, this brings your IPC, the TOV trait down to this value.
Right.
The battle goes to odds, you have a totally different number. So if you think you're in a position that you're not ahead and you must make something happen, it's definitely a battle you may want to take, although the TOV outcome looks negative on average. So that can be deceiving. So you need to get an understanding what this TOV outcome means, and you also need to look at average units surviving. That's also very important, because it can go both ways. Sometimes people avoid battles they should take because they get deceived by the TOV outcome. And sometimes people take battles they shouldn't because it's a Pyrrhus victory in the very end. When you look at, yeah, you have maybe 78% odds. But this includes outcomes in which you win with 1 tank and 1 bomber remaining, which is a Pyrrhus victory you can't afford. So that's this one aspect, but that's not too hard. What's now the harder part is to go round by round, because especially as the attacker, you have the luxury, you can retreat. So, and now it sounds a bit contradictory what I'm saying. You know, I was always talking, offer them 70%, no problem, they can't take it if there's retaliation. There's other battles in which out of sudden you give them 38% odds. And out of sudden, if you think you're ahead, and you should never offer these odds, because 72% means, yeah, if the opponent fights till the very end, he's going to lose. But if he's maybe just trying one round, and especially when both sides have cannon fodder, the first round often is quite cheaply. So the TOV drops when you fight till the end, and then all the planes, the bombers, everyone dies, and then the TOV is horrible. But if you just tease your opponent for one round, and you can just try it out, you know, it's 38%. But if your very first round goes above odds, this can immediately jump from 38 to 60 or higher percent. Out of sudden, it's deceiving. It's not just 38 by definition. It's 38 if you fight to the end every time. But if I fight a single round, I have 2 rounds. I can, okay, it didn't go as planned, or it went to odds, which is not good enough at this point. Okay, I retreat. And that early in the battle, it doesn't cost you much. Both sides have the buffer, the cannon fodder just dies, and it's cheap to retreat. But if it goes well, it can kill. This especially applies to the Germans versus Russia situation, you know?
Yes.
And so that's something what you should master. You should also try doing some round by round battles, and not just get this final result, but look at what is my, by the way, there's different calculators. There's an online calculator who does this round by round comparison. If you use the in-game calculator, you can't. So if you do so, you need to just check, okay, what's my attack power? How many hits am I supposed to make in the first round? What does this mean? How many hits do I get in return? And then you can come to a conclusion on whether you think it's still worthwhile doing an attack, which may be at below 50% odds. So that can also be deceiving. And I think that is what people need to master. The general handling is, I think, quite easy, but these are a few traps I think people could avoid.
Sure. In the AAA game, which you and I are familiar with, and I do a lot of my videos out of, there's some numbers on the right side, TUV, units, income, and then IPCs, which is different than the income. How close an eye do you keep on those things? What are you looking for?
Very. So the TOV doesn't lie. So there is positions in which it is deceiving. Apparently, there's two ways. Two things. One thing is having units, and the other is position. I mean, where are those units placed? It's a huge difference. And for that very reason, by the way, regarding attrition battles, another very important question: how far away is my unit from a facility I can reproduce it? And the further the units are away, the more careful you need to be with attrition battles. Because
very good.
It's like resources. If you transport it so far, it's more precious to getting those units there. And so, although TOV is not everything, it really depends on where those units are positioned on the map. So, at some point, if the Axis take over the TOV advantage, they almost always win. And so they do if they take over the income advantage. So when I look at the position, and that's what I love to do, I open the map and then I'm asking who's ahead. First thing I will look at those TOV, and I think from turn, let's say 6 to 12, so allies are clearly ahead if they 500 TOV ahead. So that's a number. If they this is a number when allies are certainly ahead. 400 is okay, 300 is borderline, and less than 200 is usually the allies. The Axis is winning. And apparently the other number is the units on the board. You mentioned that the allies have more money early in the game, but they are also forced to purchase more expensive units, and they buy less efficient than Axis. Germany just buys ground and on the map. Japan is a bit more tricky. You need the ground in China, but you also need the boats. But UK and US, they always have to transport everything. So they were less efficient. So that's why they need an edge. So I'm looking at 400 to 500 to see the allies ahead. And in terms of units, you want to be at least 60 units ahead in those. And if this gets too close, you're usually losing as allies.
Right. Good. I just want to check the time here. I'm not sure how long we've been going at it, but let's begin to wrap it up. Now, so what kind of bid are you looking for the allies?
Yeah. So by the way, we didn't talk ORB and balanced mode. By the way, just props. I think balanced mode was a beautifully executed, just refinement of this game. Maybe let me keep this very brief. So why balanced mode? Back in the days, people thought there's a clock on the Exiles. They either win or they lose. It has proven that it has shown that this is not correct. So Axis play evolved. People showed, including myself, no. If you get the income parity, you're gonna win. So you just go Middle East, and then you see it's either in Middle East Egypt or it's Russia again, depending on how they defend. You get the income edge, you win. And problem is, even if Russia turtles against the German blitz, okay, then they go south and get all the money and they still win. So that's what the community realized, and balanced mode was great in terms of making it harder for the Axis to get income parity, because there's so much more money to grab for the allies in the middle, in the Mediterranean. And I love all these extra, most of those objectives. I love it a lot. I like it a lot. So great addition. The Marine is a great unit. It gives the capital ships more purpose. So it's beautiful. So simply said, so OOB, I think the sweet spot is in the high 40s. 48, 48-ish is, I think, a sweet spot. With then I would considering taking the allies again. In balanced mode, I think it's in the mid 20th range. So 23 to 25. You know, I love my 23-bit. Then I can simply take 2 fighters with Russia and an infantry in Yunnan, and then I can, you know, this is a snowball bit. At these odds, Japan cannot attack Yunnan. It's suicide to attack there. And then in addition to your bit, you get artillery with China. You know, sometimes people use an 4 as an artillery in Szechuan as bit. If you do this bit, you get the artillery as a follow-up, because it's inevitable that Japan can prevent Chinese artillery. So that's why I love this. 23 is a magic number for me on the bit. This is 2 fighters and 1 infantry for Russia.
Sure.
So yeah, short answer, high 40s in OOB and some mid 20s in balanced mode, I would say.
Okay, and I got to ask, because this is one of my babies, technology. Now I know that with the current rule set, you know, no one's buying technology. Just humor me, because this is my baby. If you were to inject technology, is there any way in which you would be using it? Go ahead.
For fun purposes, I think. By the way, you know, back then we played with technology, and I don't even know if I ever played. So I observed a lot of technology games. It's just like minus EV and expected value to the IPCs, so it's not worth it. You know, you need to spend theoretically 30 IPCs to get 1 tech. So you need 6 times 5 to statistically get 1 tech.
Yeah.
And therefore, I think most of the tech is not strong, but it's not strong enough. Then you have to decide which tech it is. Some are stronger than others, but it also depends on which power gets them. So you need to pay 30 to get the tech on average, and then you have the lottery on getting the right tech for the nation who acquired it. Sure. So this maybe makes it even 40 or 50, and usually if the other player just buys units instead, you're going to lose. So it's just a fun factor, and I think that the tech is too expensive and not worth it overall. So if you want to, again, life and death game, don't buy it and you are unfavorite. It's really a fun thing. Maybe you could force people to say, you know, everyone gets 1 tech roll for free. You add more variance to the game. So then the technology is in there and people don't feel they paid for nothing. Apparently then 1 player gets lucky, gets all the tech, but dice are, you know, a relevant factor in this game. So overall, I love the idea. Really, it's tempting, it's attractive.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, the boring, competitive, I want to always win player I am always says no. Give me the money. I want to buy units, and that's why I never played it. And by the way, I also never played low luck, which I find boring. I find it intriguing. Maybe you wanted to ask this, but I never played a single low luck game, and I find them boring.
Yes.
And I think low luck, in my opinion, takes, you know, it's not the luck factor. It's a strategic element, which out of my opinion. So I find low luck boring.
I find it, I mean, obviously we're playing a simulation, we're playing a game, but low luck. By the way, the last out-of-box championship was a low luck game between my game and Arthur Bomber Harris. Do you want to know what some of the comments were in the threads? I got unlucky in Yunnan with the fighters. so I appreciate it.
Possible, but it's a true statement at some point, you know.
Yes. So even with 1 dice,
exactly
1 dice, he said I got unlucky in Yunnan with my fighters.
And it's true, you know, at this level.
It is true.
The game is so deterministic here. Those pips the leftover pips can make the difference if you hit or lose.
It does. And
I
totally sympathize.
And low luck heavily favors the excess. I think in low luck, the bits must go higher for the allies, because it's the excess that must do at some point the big battles. And if you have the guarantee of not failing on most of the battles, it's an advantage for the Axis, in my opinion.
Absolutely, absolutely. I see it as I don't know if you ever play against yourself using the AAA program, but in that case, low luck makes sense because you're going for the average dice roll. You're coming up with a new strategy, and low luck could make sense.
Yeah,
But if
absolutely.
in a real game, no, in a real game, I'm looking at Midway. Like I said, you and I talked before the camera started rolling that I do this for history. I love World War II. I watch Masters of the Air. I'm reading the book right now. After this, I'll find another book to read. Victor Davis Hanson is my favorite historian. So I'm in it for the history, and I play immersively, like you talked about life and death. So that I'm not looking at getting a 90% win rate. I'm saying, can I win this game? And I'm in the middle of this game. And so and that's why I would say, hey, look, if a Midway happens to me, if Leyte Gulf was an odd one where there was, huge battleships against, and tons of situations like that where, yeah, Agincourt for the French and in the 30 Years War, I think it was, or the 100 Years War, where the luck seems to favor one side, and that's life. So.
Yes, and I mean, Midway is this perfect example on how, to what degree luck determined the outcome of these major battles. I think in Midway, it was a straddler US plane
Yes.
that by accident, found those carriers out of sight. We are not in, back then, there were millions of square miles of sea, and finding a fleet was just coincidence. And then,
Sure.
So that's a great example of that even real life taught how that luck is an element of war or any war simulation. So another great argument against low luck and for luck, the luck version.
Well, Tobias, thank you so much for sharing your time with us and your wisdom. I look forward to seeing you on the site. Maybe someday we can roll some dice and I can learn from you up close and personal, as it were. But thank you so much for this interview. Any last words you'd like to say to the community?
Gosh, I wasn't prepared for this. No, I don't any. I just thank everyone. I think it's a great community overall, and play the game. It's a great game, and I'm grateful for everyone who's participating in the league. Thank you for having me. I'm a great interview partner, and thank you also for supporting the community with this interview series, which makes the game more attractive. It's a fun game for us, and the more people that play game, the more fun it's for everyone. And
that's right.
My conclusion.
Here's to the future of Axis Allies. Thank you, Tobias.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone, for watching. Bye-bye. I'm going to end. I'm going to end the recording. I'm still on right now. I need to get to the stop recording right there.